Do you want to write a sitcom and you don't know where to start? Start here. I've got a list of 5 things that'll help you write a situation comedy. My name is James Carey. I've been writing sitcoms for the BBC for 25 years, and over that time I've noticed how sitcoms work, how they develop, and it's been my job to come up with episode after episode of sitcom, and therefore I need a way of coming up with sitcoms that just generate story after story. And the reason you need one of those, if you're writing a sitcom, even if you're only planning on writing the first episode, is you need to create the kind of world where there are lots of stories, because the great sitcoms run and run for episode after episode, 100, 200 episodes. What you're trying to create is a precinct, a place where personalities reside, but we're going to get into that as we go. So I've made individual episodes of my Situation Room YouTube for each of these 5 P's. There are 10 altogether. This is the first 5. This is the real engine room of how sitcoms are made, because if you get these stages wrong, it just isn't going to work. If you set off on the ocean and you're just a couple of degrees out on your journey, you're going to end up absolutely hundreds, if not thousands of miles away from where you are trying to go. So you want a really smoking hot pilot script for your situation comedy. Start here. You need to think about these 5 things, and I've got questions that will help us sharpen this up. So what you might want to do is just get a pen and paper and note these down as you go. You can also click below and go over to my blog where these will be written out for you as well, and then that'll alert you to future videos, because I'm all about helping you write better sitcom scripts, because I love situation comedy and I love laughing. Who doesn't? Sitcoms are slightly in the doldrums at the moment, but I know that we're just one great sitcom away from a whole new ecosystem of sitcoms, both on the television, on streaming, but also on YouTube, and people making their own stuff and rediscovering what a sitcom is. What is a sitcom? Let me tell you. Let's get into it. So the first thing we need is to answer the who. Who is your sitcom about? Now, it may be that you first came up with the place, the premise, the precinct. I've done that on some of my situation comedies. I came up with a Radio 4 comedy called Think the Unthinkable, about management consultants. And I thought about the place before I thought about the people. I wrote another sitcom for Radio 4 called Hut 33, set in Bletchley Park during World War II. Again, I started with the precinct. I wrote another show for BBC 3 called Bluestone 42, about a bomb disposal troop in Afghanistan. Again, I thought of the precinct before the personalities. It doesn't really matter where you start. You will need to cover both before you get on to the third one. So let's just start with our characters. That is normally the best place to start. I've called them personalities because it begins with P, and it just changes our thinking, because an awful lot of story advice that you'll find here on YouTube, but also in all the storybooks, and I've got loads of those storybooks like Save the Cat and all that kind of stuff. They're probably over there on my shelf. They're all really good books, but in fact, here's Save the Cat. I've got it here. So books like this, really good, really helpful if you're writing a movie. And a movie is a 3-act or 5-act structure, depending on how you slice it or dice it. And that's all fine. A sitcom stuck permanently in Act 2. And so therefore, you need your characters to be stuck in their precinct. It is the who in the where. So, personalities. Now, I've got away from the word character because all of the character stuff is from books and it's aimed at movies and novels. We're in a sitcom. We're going to call them personalities. So, they need 2 things. They're not just a bunch of attributes. They're not a job title who crack jokes, okay? They are people, personalities, with purpose and perspective. Okay, purpose and perspective. Let's look at the first one. Purpose. What do they want? What are they trying to get out of life? What is their deepest desires? How do they see the world? And so that is a question you need to answer. So let's say you've got a character, she's called Beverly, and she works in an office and she's very excitable. Well, that's fine, but that doesn't tell you anything about her purpose. Let's say what she loves is order, and she loves ticking lists off, and she loves everything to be in its proper place. Okay, now she's got a purpose. Everything she does is going to be towards that purpose of creating order. And it may be that in the workplace, she's able to create some sort of order that she can't have at home. And that's why she comes to this workplace, because it is a place of rules and order. And I don't know what it's like in your house, but back at home, your kids don't follow the rules. It's complete chaos, partly because you love them in a completely different way to the way in which you like your colleagues at work. So your character is going to need purpose. It may be that you've got a character who is a used car salesman. He's selling cars, and his purpose isn't to sell cars. His purpose is to be the best at selling cars. He wants to be the #1 salesman every single time. So, imagine a sitcom. It's a bit like Glengarry, Glen Ross, but it's a second-hand car dealership. It's not a terribly original idea, but I'm just trying to illustrate these with new ideas rather than going back to existing sitcoms. Because the problem with doing that is it looks like success is inevitable. And actually, it's probably better just to dream up examples out of thin air, which is exactly what I'm doing for this. I don't have any notes for this. I'm not reading a script. I'm just going through my list and popping ideas off the top of my head. That is probably the one thing in my life that I'm actually really good at, is this kind of thing and coming up with ideas. I'm not a completer finisher. But again, that goes back to my purpose in life, which is liberty, freedom. I've never had a salary job since the age of 18 in my gap year. And then since then, I've never worked for the man. I've always been self-employed. I've always been a writer in some form or another. For 25 years, it's mostly been situation comedy and a bit of murder mystery and those sorts of things. Because I want freedom. I want to be autonomous. I want to look after myself. I don't want to be a burden on anyone else. So think about your character. What do they really want? You don't just want a second-hand car salesman or a guy who sells cars in a dealership. You want someone who wants to be the best. Or you want someone who does the job but wants to do it in a way that aligns with their values, which therefore means not lying. Good luck if that's you selling cars. Same with a estate agency or whatever it is. So there's the purpose, but then there's also the perspective. Okay, how does this person look at the world? Okay, so your car salesman looks at a world in which he can achieve and rise to the top and be the best. He's not actually that interested in cars. There might be another car seller who just loves the cars, and they geek out about the cars, and they're talking about the cars, and they're talking about the suspension, and they're talking about the incredible auto braking system, and the potential customer, has wandered off. They love the car. But our guy, he wants the status. How does he see the world? What is his way of looking at the world? This is a place where he can come out on top. Your perspective is, how does your character see the world? It is a ladder to be climbed. It is a place to be admired. Beverly, back in the office, remember her, she sees the world as disordered, and she is trying to bring order to the chaos. And at the office, maybe she's the office manager, that's the one place where she can bring about order. And so that's how she's taking control of that. These are big issues about life, aren't they? These are big things about how life actually works and how it is to be lived. But that is the way in which you need to be thinking about your sitcoms, because if this thing's going to run and run for 100, 200 episodes, you need all of these ideas up your sleeve, and these characters are going to have to last because they don't change. Because they don't change. They're not in a movie. Save the Cat isn't going to help you write a sitcom. I'm going to help you with these 5 things. Personalities. Your characters need purpose and they need perspective. So maybe have a think about some characters that you've got and have a think about what they really want. And if you want to go deep on this, then take a personality test, whatever you like, Myers-Briggs or the Enneagrams or the Clifton Strengths or whatever. Sit the test as them, and then the results and the verdict of that test will just tell you all about this character that you've created. Now that test, those results won't necessarily give you everything, and there'll be some bits you think, oh, I don't think they're quite this, they're more this than that. Okay, that's great. In that case, then bin everything you've learned from the personality test, but just keep the good bits, keep the bits that help you. So that's personalities, purpose and perspective, that's the who. Then it's the where, it's the place. And this is where we really do need to think about a place where the audience is going to want to be. That's something that's been lost quite a lot recently. There's a lot of authored sitcoms about characters in a kind of a world where they float between zones and it's just about them and their story. That's fine if you like that sort of thing. I don't, but other people do. I prefer the traditional stuff like Cheers or Frasier or Brooklyn Nine-Nine or Friends, all those sorts of shows, Only Fools and Horses, where we know where the characters are at any one given time. That is that sense of place. And the reason we need to be clear on that place is because of this other thing, which is protocol. So there's that sense of place, but protocol begins with a P, so that's good. But it's about the rules. What are the rules of the game? What are the rules of that world? Okay, so people spend an awful lot of time world building, which is fine, particularly fun in fantasy books or science fiction books, and that's all right. But actually what we need to know is what are the rules. So, place and protocol. I wrote a sitcom called Bluestone 42, I mentioned before. It's about a bomb disposal troop in Afghanistan, and it had a strong sense of place. It was centered around the forward operating base, and almost every episode started with a team meeting, and that's when they were getting their orders and working out what they were going to do in the day. It was either them by the side of the road about to pull an IED out of the ground, or in the DET, it was called, the detachment, they just called it that, that's research. And protocol, Captain Nick Medhurst is in charge because he's captain, and people are junior to him in rank, and they all relate to each other based on rank and role. And we know what the rules of the game are. So we know how that works within the team, outside the team, and then also we know that the Taliban are the bad guys. And so, you know, the protocol and the rules are very clear, but also the relationships between the characters, who can say what to whom. So whatever your world is, you just need a bit of a hierarchy. You need a bit of a sense of which character relates to what. That's your place, and that is your protocol and your pacts. That's my other word really for the relationship between the characters, the bonds, the obligations, because that is at the heart really of situation comedy. There's very little compulsion. You've got characters driven by their purpose, but they're hampered by the pacts they have with other characters. Beverly, in her office, wants to organise everybody, but nobody wants to be quite as organised as she would like them to be. And so there are various pacts with different individual characters about we agree to this and that. It's all unwritten. And one of the reasons why things get funny is because stuff that's unwritten is either ignored or taken for granted, and that way there is confusion and comedy. But that word confusion is really important because confusion is the enemy of comedy. I've said it on many videos on this channel. I've said it in books and on podcasts as well. Confusion is the enemy of comedy. If the audience doesn't really know what's going on, if they don't quite understand who these two characters are and what the relationship is between them, they're not going to laugh. And we want people to laugh, right? It's a sitcom. That's why we need to establish place, protocol and pacts so that it's clear. So in Cheers, it's a Boston bar. So in our car dealership, what are they there for? They're there to sell cars. Easy. And they're all competing to see who sells the most cars, and they each have a different way of going about it. We've got an office. Office sitcoms are hard because the overall mission of the company is often not clear. And that's why office sitcoms are difficult to do, and why The Office, the American workplace, is a triumph of writing and creation, because it kind of circumvents that magically somehow. I'm not entirely sure how. But if you've got a bar, if you've got a cafe, if you've got a depot, a shop, we kind of know the story. You know, there's a doctor's surgery where people come in because they're sick and we know what needs to happen. They need to get well. Okay, so think carefully about the clarity of the place, of the protocol and the pacts. One of the reasons we chose a bomb disposal unit in Afghanistan rather than a random bunch of soldiers is because the role of the bomb disposal guy is very, very clear. The show came out soon after the Hurt Locker. If you're in the UK, there's a long history of bomb disposal people doing the long walk down to the bomb because of the whole Northern Ireland thing. And so it was just clear what the job is. Okay, get the bomb and don't let it detonate. Don't let it function. Diffuse it, bring it back. Let's find out who planted it there and go around to their house and drag them into custody. That's the idea. So that is really key. Those first two things are the total bedrock. They are phase one of getting that engine going. And you need to spend a lot of time thinking and thinking and thinking about these characters. And the more detail, the more thinking you do on that, actually, you'll start to find that the plots will come. Plots is P6. That's down there. We're not going to get there in this video. But we are going to look at the shape of an individual plot and what it needs to do. Okay, so here we are with number 3, the what, the pursuit. So we're not just people bimbling around a place saying funny things. Okay, that's called a panel game. That's a TV show where comedians are booked to be funny in a room. A sitcom is relationships, it's story, it's people wanting things and doing things. And your sitcom doesn't start until your character, your personality pursues something, goes after something. Let's look at the car dealership. There's a competition. Whoever sells the most cars this month wins a car, let's say. And it's not a very nice car, but it's a car they win. The winner wants to win it because they want to win. They don't actually want the slightly crummy car that's being offered, and there may be complications with it. And also, the episode's not going to take place over the course of a month. That is madness. But what we are always looking at is sort of 48 hours, 72 hours. You need that short time frame of a plot to put the characters under pressure. Because there's no pressure if the deadline is a month away. Let's have the deadline a day away, 2 days away. And so suddenly the rules of the game may have changed, and the guy who was winning now thinks they're losing, or they want to win by a particular margin, or somebody has suddenly sold the most expensive car they have and they've sold 2 of them, or a fleet, and suddenly he's behind and he must win. He's won every single time, every single month, and he has to keep that unbroken record going. So those are the kind of the shenanigans where it's clear this guy's going to go after that thing. In the same way that Beverly in her office is going to try and bring about order. So she's going to institute some kind of system, maybe in the kitchen, which is always a mess. And she's decided that everybody has to go on a rota to clear up after themselves because they don't have a cleaner, or they used to, and that's now gone. She wants to bring order out of chaos. Now, that's not as good a plot at the moment yet, because although she's got something to pursue, which is order in the kitchen, and she started a rota so that people do it. What's the problem? The word particularly. What exactly is she trying to do? And when I used to work on Miranda, which is a few years ago now, I developed a term called the clear toss, which stands for clear terms of success. And that means we know exactly what the character is trying to achieve and what that will have achieved. So I don't know what the clear toss is on keeping the kitchen clean. Okay, that's quite a nebulous thing. So I don't quite know a way around that. It's like the rota of the kitchen, people doing it, people. It's like, what exactly is it? And essentially ask the question, What happens if they fail? What's the downside? Specifically, again, exactly what happens when they don't succeed. And at this point, you're realizing that this isn't just about pursuit and the things they do. This is about purpose and perspective and protocol and pacts. The fact is, Beverly feels really beaten down by the fact that no one seems to share her vision for the cleanliness of the kitchen. And there's maybe one particular person on the rota who never cleans, who won't do it. And what she understands by that is this person doesn't respect me. And so what I would suggest, if you want to go down that route for that plot, is that it's not a question of will there be a clean kitchen, it's like, will this person clean the kitchen by the time they said they would on their day, or something like that, and demonstrate that actually they do respect Beverly and her wishes. And it may be that Beverly hasn't really understood that this other person has some secret hard time issue problem that she didn't know about, and now she feels mortified that she's laid down the law to this person. And so suddenly it's all about an emotional thing, and then it doesn't really matter about the kitchen. It's not about the kitchen. It's not about the J-cloths and the cleaning. It's about something else. But it's a proxy, isn't it? But you still need that clear thing whereby if this happens, therefore we know this kind of emotional thing has been done. For example, your character needs to take a driving test. This is an example I've used on my blog before, but I think it's a really helpful one. There are many reasons for wanting to pass your driving test. There's the idea that I want to pass it first time because my big brother passed it first time and everyone thinks he's amazing. And why don't they think I'm amazing? I want to pass it first time. There's another character who says, I need to pass my test so I can get the heck out of here because my household is driving me absolutely crazy. I want to leave home, I want to get away, and so I have to pass. And there's, so that's two different reasons. We could probably think of lots more. But during the course of that episode about passing the driving test, that little brother realizes something about his big brother, and suddenly his big brother can't believe that his brother only wants to pass to kind of match up with him. And suddenly there's this emotional scene which needs to happen either before, during, or after the test. And that's what it's really about. And so that's why the emotional stakes are really, really important. And so, but we do need that clear moment where we can imagine from the beginning of the episode where this episode is roughly heading. So it's heading towards a driving test. And along the way, we discover it's not really about the driving test, but there is a driving test with a pass or fail. That's a nice, clear thing, isn't it? Even though subsequently we realise it doesn't really matter if they pass or fail, because the one who wants to get away because, say, she wants to get away from her household, she then realises that this place loves her more than she realises and that she needs them more than she realises. And actually passing the test is quite a moving and emotional thing. So she gets what she wants, but it doesn't make her feel the way she expected. But it's always going for the specificity, the particularity of that pursuit. So I'm trying to pass my driving test is a perfectly thing to go after, and it's in 48 hours time, so I need to get some last minute practice in. That's fine, but why? Okay, and that's what we need to know. But passing a driving test is a good kind of thing for the particular. But then here's the last thing. How does the character go about doing the thing? They don't do it as you would do it, and they don't do it as I would do it. How do they go about it? As they would do it. Beverly in the office is very organised, and she likes to make a list. And so therefore, she tries to solve all of her problems by making a list and getting everybody to chip in and do the thing that they're meant to do. Me, I'm not a list maker. I do make lists. Hey, look, I made a list. But I don't want to get anybody else to do anything, okay? Because I don't want people to ask me to do things for them either. That's why I entirely voluntarily do this YouTube channel. Nobody asks me to do it, and I'm just doing it because I like doing it. So I go about things in my own way. I don't ask for help. In the same way that our car dealer, who's trying to sell lots of cars, he's very proud. Again, he's not going to let anybody see that he's struggling. He's not going to ask for help. So he'll do things that the audience may go, oh my goodness, I can't believe they're doing that. But they know why they're doing it. So all of your characters pursue these particular things according to their own passions. And if you go back and watch the YouTube video on this, I talk about how much I don't like using the phone. I won't try to solve any problem by phoning someone. I don't like doing it and I don't know why not. And as long as that's a clear character point for your character, what you can do is just make sure that your character goes about their quest in their own inimitable and flawed way. So that is the process. Personalities, precinct, pursuit, particular, passion. And if you use those 5 things when you're dreaming up your next sitcom, you're not going to go too far wrong. And believe me, I've read dozens and hundreds of scripts which have gone far wrong because they're just people in a place doing stuff and saying stuff. And that just isn't enough. Being funny in a situation is not a situation comedy. You really do need characters with purpose and perspective in a place, in a precinct, with clear rules of engagement and protocol and pact relationships that are baked into the format so that we know what's at stake. And then you need a plot where your character goes after something and they do it specifically. There's a deadline, there are consequences if they don't succeed, even though the emotional stakes are very different from what they thought at the beginning. And they go about it in their own deluded and inimitable way, because that's how Beverly is, that's how our car dealer is, that's how our guy who loves the cars and wants to talk about the technology does it. He really thinks that if he enthuses enough people about cars, he can sell more cars. And of course we know that's probably not going to work. But it makes total sense to him. And that's why it's funny. If you want more of this sort of thing, the next 5 will be appearing over the course of the summer. And I'm also going to be maybe working through more specific examples on this channel. So do subscribe to the channel. But actually, your best bet is to subscribe to my blog, The Situation Room, and then you'll be alerted whenever videos drop. And also you'll find out about my book, Field Notes from a Sitcom Writer, which is first-hand experiences from the trenches, as it were, of writing situation comedy. Hope that helps. Speak to you next time. Cheerio.